the that whole thing about.
Hello, friends, and welcome to our second installment of moving through the chakras and bringing practical and esoteric understanding of chakra energy. I am Mimi. I am the proprietress of Gaia Blooming, and I am your daily astrologer, connecting the dots to the energies so that we can utilize them in our daily lives. And I'm here today again with Ryan and Nicole Oman. Oh, wrong way. There they are.
It's backwards.
Who are bringing wonderful, wonderful information to us. So I will let them introduce themselves.
Cool. I guess I'll go first. My name is Ryan, and I work with my beautiful wife here, Nicole. We have a company called Guided by the Omans because our last name is Oman. And
see what we did there?
Yeah. Basically, we don't see ourselves as life coaches. We see ourselves as life Sherpas, helping Earth angels just like you climb this metaphorical mountain that we call life. And we're here primarily to speak about the chakra system, and specifically today, the sacral chakra.
And I'm Nicole Oman. I've been a life coach, healer, shaman for about 15 plus years. And I really help people dig deep into themselves, find who they really are, and clear away all of that noise and nonsense beliefs and trauma. So you really can feel empowered to be yourself. I think self-love starts right from that. It's just giving yourself the permission to be yourself.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the other important thing to say is that we focus on spirituality in a very practical way. If it doesn't have practical application in your life, then it's just ideas. So we like to try to take all these wonderful high concepts and bring them down to reality.
We're Taurus. He's a Taurus. I'm a Virgo, so it makes sense.
Gotta bring it down to earth.
Well, speaking of bringing it down into reality, Ryan is going to kick us off with a meditation to connect us to the sacral chakra for today.
Yeah, so this little bubble meditation is a great way to get centered in any one of your chakras. So you can basically, we'll do this every week. And last week we did it in the root. Today we're going to do it in the sacral. So the first thing you want to do is make sure that you're in a position where you feel comfortable, but sitting up straight. So imagine if someone important walked into the room and you wanted to look alert, and you wanted to basically use your spine as an antenna. So, you want to make sure that antenna is nice and straight so it's getting good reception. The next thing you want to do is just close your eyes and start to connect to your breath. And the best way to connect to your breathing is to actually feel the breath in different parts of your body. So we're going to start by feeling the breath moving through the nostrils. And bring that breath up into your sinuses. And feel that breath pull into your throat. Then draw the breath down into your lungs. And pull the breath into your belly. Then drop the breath all the way into your pelvis. Then finally, feel the breath go all the way into your base, your pelvic floor. Then float the breath back into the center of your hips. Imagine your hips like a big bowl of water. And in the center of this bowl, floating on the surface of the water, is a tiny orb of orange light. With each breath, we're going to increase the size of this little orb of light on the exhale. Inhale, and inflate that ball of light to the size of a marble. To the size of a golf ball. To the size of a softball. To the size of a basketball. To the size of a beach ball. To the size of your entire body. And just imagine yourself floating on the surface of the water inside of this orange ball of light, perfectly safe. This light will surround us for this entire video and keep us grounded in the energy of the sacral chakra. So when you're ready, open your eyes, come back to this space and time, and enjoy our unbelievably intelligent information.
Laughter is always a good way to pull you back into your body, right?
Definitely.
All right. Definitely some things came to me while we were digging into that. So, would you guys like to kick this off, or do you want me to dig into?
No, if things came up for you during the meditation, that sounds like you've got the hot hand. Let's go.
All right. Well, so some of the energies that encompass or encompassed by the sacral chakra are sensuality and sexuality, which Nikki and Ryan are definitely going to dig into today in tandem with the energies of Tantra. But part of the sacral chakra is also our emotions, our feelings, and our creativity. And part of what I was feeling, I love one of the things I love in astrology is how every sign that's like, before the next sign, it's a beautiful foundation for it. And the root chakra is such a beautiful foundation for the sacral chakra, because to be able to fully feel our emotions, to allow our creativity to come through, to allow intimacy, sexuality, sensuality, we have to feel safe, right? And so if you have not watched last week's, please go back and watch that so that you can support this energy that we're bringing through. Connecting it to astrology. This year, our astrology, every year has some major lessons for us, but one big thing for astrology this year is going to be the planet Saturn, which is our major karmic lessons. Like Saturn is our master teacher. Saturn's going to be moving out of the energy of Aquarius and into Pisces. And Saturn in Pisces, which is going to shift in March, is going to have us taking responsibility for our emotions. So being able to allow and work with your emotions is definitely going to be a huge topic, like a huge lesson for all of us over the next 2.5 years, so to speak. So to be able to like dig into our sacral chakra and work with the root chakra, feeling safe in these energies is definitely going to be a huge theme for all of us. And as I was sitting here, the download that I was getting, was that part of Pisces energy, beyond like the emotional energies of Pisces. Any water sign can bring us into our emotions, but a big calling of Pisces is actually that calling to union as well. I always equate Pisces energy with Rumi poems. And if you read Rumi poems, a lot of people turn them romantic, right? Because it's like, uh, you have always danced inside my heart. I have always known you here. And the union can be with another, but it's also that union with God. And so there's so many amazing energies that we can dig into. And that's what was coming through. So I'd love to send it over to you to kind of dig into this, but that's where I was kind of getting pulled into as we were doing that meditation.
Yeah, well, the sacral chakra brings up polarity or duality. And one of the wonderful things, I mean, Pisces is the two fish, right? So there's that polarity, that yin and yang duality type thing. But correct me if I'm wrong, but the opposite of Pisces on the astrological chart is Virgo, correct?
Yes.
So what came up for me while you were saying that was this idea of the container, right? This root chakra solid container that the Virgo represents, and then the water that sits within that container or bowl that has these two fish swimming around in it. So I quite literally saw a vision of a bowl with two fish swimming around in circles, and the bowl represents your pelvis in a very physical way. If you look at the pelvis in the bone structure, it looks like a bowl. And then the sacral chakra quite literally sits right in the center of that bowl. And so that energy is kind of swirling in the bowl, but the bowl, the container is so important, because without that container, all that water would just disperse and spread out and make a mess. So the dualistic nature of needing that Virgo energy to hold space while the Pisces gets to, swim around and do its Pisces thing, that's the imagery that popped up for me.
And I have to say, something was really inspired when Mimi was talking about how the Rumi poems can be both like this lover, like your relationship, or with God. And what we have a tendency to look at, and we'll talk a little bit more about Tantra as this video keeps going on, but it's also going, well, everything is God. So if you can see God in your lover and learn how to see the mastery within yourself at the same time, like holding that empowerment of seeing the mastery or God within yourself, at the same time looking at your relationship, your partner as another aspect of God and a master to teach you things, whether they're good, bad, ugly, or in between. That is that relationship of learning from the external, learning from your lover as the divine, and learning more about God and its creation in that way. So I think it goes both. There is that duality of like God within, because you got to know yours,
right?
So you don't give your power away, or you don't end up in an abusive relationships. But at the same time, learning from the beauty that relationship brings, and also the friction, because we're going to talk about sacral, you need friction in so many ways,
and lubrication.
There's a Rumi quote, just to bring it back to Rumi, that
there's always room for Rumi.
There's always room for Rumi. Is how you make love is how God will be with you. And I can also say that as how you love is how God will be with you. So fits in so well. I love that.
Yes, it does fit in so well.
Good job.
We're gonna be doing this. You're getting me down the rabbit hole. But yeah, another dualistic relationship that takes place in the world of tantras is the dualistic energies of the feminine and the masculine, which are represented by Ida and Pingala. The Pingala or Pingala is the masculine energy that arises, that Kundalini energy, that serpent, and the Ida is the feminine energy coming up. And so these two begin the dance that will eventually bring them up to the crown chakra down here in the sacral. They're basically sleeping in the root chakra, which we brought up last week, and now they're into the sacral chakra and they're starting to swim. And that's that Piscean, like kind of like you see. I see this. We have this picture in our room that has a fish swimming after the other fish's tail, and then that fish is swimming after the other fish's tail. So it's very much a yin yang, but it's done with two fish swimming around each other, just like that, the Piscean sign. So I very much see this Kundalini energy, like one of those fish represents Ida, the other one represents Pingala, and they're swirling around this vortex type energy that's going to eventually lift them up into the next few chakras.
So I want to introduce something. So we, in January 22nd, Ryan and I are going to be starting our next program, and it's called the Ascension program. And Mimi did it last fall, and we go up the chakras. And I want to talk a little bit about that because we've done this program with two beautiful beta groups already, and we see some things going on in the sacral chakra. So when we get up into the sacral chakra, when we recorded them in 2001, Ryan got stuck in this energy for about 2 weeks, and it took us a little bit. And then after we finished our program, Ryan and I had to go into an entire 6 months of learning about our sexual nature, kind of growing it, maturing it, knowing who we are and who we're not.
Cleaning up past resentments and mistakes and that sort of thing.
What we don't realize when we're learning about our sexual nature is that we are so young when this is coming online. And so when this sexual energy comes online for us, when we hit puberty, we're like, I've got legs. And we don't even know what's going on down here. We're just going, hair is growing and I smell and this is awkward, and women are going, or girls are going, there's this menstrual thing that I have to learn how to deal with.
Boys are getting excited when there's nothing to be excited about. It's a very awkward time. So I mean, I think we have to all accept the fact that sexuality is awkward.
And then it connects with our hormones as well. My daughter is 11, and so we've been talking about this time period a lot because they are very there's a lot of anxiety around it that I didn't realize. And Kali articulates it really well. But she's also talked about, she went through that phase of, well, maybe I can be transgender, so I don't have to go through puberty because I want to have shots so I don't go through puberty. And I'm like, no, you can't not go through this. You have to go through this really interesting and awkward rite of passage. But at the same time, I'm like, oh, it's making me think about that time period. And when we had to go through this time period with us, we didn't realize that we were holding on some shame about us exploring ourselves when we were younger. And those first sexual experiences are core memories, core bodily memories that get stuck. And sometimes when we go to express ourselves sexually, you feel that inner awkward 17-year-old going, I don't know what to do.
Oh yeah, that definitely came up for me big time when we were integrating during that process. And I think that the integration is such a key concept here, because what will happen is you will start to touch those uncomfortable places, those little core memories like Nikki talked about. And when you start to bring those up to the surface, you are like, whoa, that's awkward, uncomfortable. I really don't want to deal with that. But the adult part of you, the mature part of you, needs to really kind of go back in time and take the immature learning part of you by the hand and go, it's okay, I got you. We've come a long way. Let's process through some of these things that have really been controlling the way that we behave from a subconscious level for many, many years. And if we don't take the awkward opportunity to go back and look at these things and work through them, then they're going to constantly be running the show from behind the scenes. So bringing those to our current mature adult awareness is going to help us to evolve them so that we can reintegrate them into our lives in a much more healthy way.
And like you were talking about Saturn, and that Saturn is such a maturation process. We have to mature ourselves. So in the next year, I think you're going to go through a lot of emotional maturity, sexual maturity, and also, creative maturity as well. But again, when you're going through puberty, what else? Not just sexually, you're being very much stimulated emotionally, especially women. Hormones.
My goodness.
Emotions are such a huge part of the sacral.
Yeah, and that's we're not taught in schools. Is how to deal with emotions. So much of, I feel like what I was taught is like, you have emotions, brush them under the rug. Like, don't go there. Like, you can't go there. And so many clients that I have, like how can I be human in the world? Like, I gotta push my emotions. I can't be emotional at work. You know, we as a world, I think, are so challenged around emotions and the expression of them.
Well,
100%.
even in spirituality, it's like
Oh,
the
yeah.
emotions are dark and love and light only. And I'm like, I am Shakti all the way, you guys. I feel the rage. I feel the things. And if we don't have a healthy container to be able to express these, they're going to bubble up to the surface, and then they're going to do one of two things. They're either going to express themselves in a very embarrassing way because you can't control them anymore. And they're going to spill over that container, and you're going to go, right? Or you're going to implode them so deeply that they start making disease in the body. And then I see a lot of people have breast cancer or ovarian, or, like these different places where we don't express our emotions. And then all of a sudden they have to deal with it in this way because it's now eating them alive. And so there are ways to deal with that. And there are very creative ways.
Yeah, creativity is such an excellent way to connect to your sacral chakra. The imagery that keeps popping up for me is watercolors. So when you're painting with watercolors, most people have painted with watercolors at some point in their life. When you're painting with watercolors, you don't have like really good control. Like you put a line down on the paper, and suddenly it starts to spread as that water starts to seep into the page. So people who are really good at watercolors understand the principle that it's going to do that. It's going to leach into the paper, and they use that to their advantage, knowing that the color will start to move into different colors and start to blend with different aspects of the painting, and they start to flow with that. Instead of trying to manipulate and control your emotions, you need to learn how to flow with them, knowing the different colors basically represent different emotions, and knowing that there's going to be a little seepage from one emotion into the next, and learning how to navigate that takes a lot of finesse, and it takes experience. And you just have to allow yourself to go be a beginner, go through that stage where you're just learning how to watercolor and getting messy before you can start to become an expert in that. And so obviously I'm using watercolor as a metaphor here of playing with your different emotions, allowing those different emotions to come out and utilize them like you would different colors. Nikki and I had great experience doing this as actors in Los Angeles. Especially we did a class called Meisner technique, which was very much just raw, authentic communication with another individual on stage. And the key was to just allow those emotions to come out of you naturally in the moment, and not try to edit them, not try to explain them, not try to repress them, to just ride them almost like a surfer would ride a wave.
Yeah. Mimi, what are the different techniques that you use with your emotions?
Okay, so having been from, East Coast. I was born on the East Coast. I was just there. So I got a good review of this. It was very stand tall, be strong. And it wasn't until I dug into my spiritual work and my teacher, Kufu, that I was like, oh, I have to feel these things. A lot of times it is practicing, for me, it's practicing presence with whatever feeling is coming up. And sometimes in my head, it's like, that's okay. That's okay. Because for me, I will so often go to a mental place of judging, lots of judgment of oh, you're feeling this way. You don't have to feel this way. You shouldn't feel this way, all of that. And so just to be able to be present, like you said, have a container for that and to allow it to come through has been my practice. I still can't say that I don't judge myself at times or that I don't stop myself at times from, oh my gosh, leaving my mom and sister the other day. I was having many conversations in my head as I'm standing in the TSA line, and everybody's so happy because they're going home to see their families. And here I am. I literally was just standing there. I got a bloody nose actually as well, but with tears dripping down my face. I got a bloody nose because we had the heat on so high because it was so cold, but just tears dripping down my face.
There's a lot of things though, blood in the nose,
coming out of my nose and tears, and I'm standing there and I'm like, I'm okay with this. I am having a lot of feelings about leaving. I mean, my mom and sister are standing right there, and I was like, I don't want to look at you because I don't want to cry anymore. But just allowing that grief to move through was really.
What emotion, Mimi, do you feel like you have the hardest time with?
For me, I think my hardest emotion is anger and rage. You know, I can accept the tears, right? They're acceptable. But how do we express anger, frustration, and rage in a healthy way where we don't hurt somebody, but we can express that energy? That can be a challenging balance. And I love happy Mimi, right? Like who doesn't, right? Like I love being happy. I love being cheerful. I love when things are going well. And yet I, as any human, get angry and feel that frustration. And that can be a really challenging emotion for me to allow to move through. But I have to say, even when I want to just say one more thing, even when I thought that I had one more day there. I thought that I was coming home a different day than I actually came home. And when I found out that that wasn't the case, I got bummed. And I was sitting there like feeling it next to the Christmas tree. Like my sister came in, she's like, why are you so glum? And I was like, I thought I had another day. She's like, but what about being grateful? And I'm like, oh, I'm so grateful for this trip. And yet I'm feeling this right now. And that was such a breakthrough moment for me because like old me would be like, okay. But I was like, I'm feeling it. I'm feeling the sadness. I'm grateful and sad. And it can both be true at once.
Yeah, that's such a huge aspect of emotions and working with emotions is honoring the emotions and not judging them. And that's not to say indulging. I mean, because that's definitely a sacral chakra thing. So we Nikki and I encourage a lot to establish balance, right? You can have an overactive chakra and you can have an underactive chakra. So the point is to have balance. Like think of it like a tire. You don't want to inflate it too much because then it could explode. But if you don't inflate it enough, then you get a flat tire. Having that perfect amount of inflation so that it operates the way it's supposed to is the key. And you can very easily try to repress your emotions and shove them back, kind of basically shoving down that trying to shut down the sacral
and negating them too.
Or you can indulge in them and you push that the other direction, and then you just become this big messy emotional person who's just throwing that on everybody. So the key is to find that balance in the middle. And I think that that's such a great awareness for you to just be able to go, this is where I am right now, and I'm just going to honor that and not feel as though you need to behave a certain way in order to feel grateful. It's like I can still feel grateful and be bummed out and still harness gratitude inside of you can even be grateful for being bummed out. Like, wow, I must really care about my family because I'm bummed out.
Right, exactly. It's not a bad thing to feel bummed that it's like one less day. It's like that's okay. It's okay. Yeah.
100%.
One of the things before we move on, one of the things that I wanted to say to you, Mimi, is what I heard is you allowed everything to be okay, like you allowed it to be okay without trying to shift it too quickly. But the main thing that I really heard is you communicated it. And you communicated of like, yeah, I'm grateful, but I also, it's okay for me to feel this way. And that when you communicate it that way and set that healthy container boundary of like, yes, I will be grateful, but I also have to process this and not negate it.
Yeah.
It also gives her like that whole yes or no, like She doesn't have to take it this way, but it's like, it's okay to feel.
Yep.
And yeah, we have to feel, because if we don't feel, then we're not listening to the internal navigational system that's like something's wrong or something's off or I need to be met here. And that is where we create those containers for intimacy, because intimacy is not necessarily sexual. Intimacy is being real with who we're at, like allowing us to feel those deep feels. And then eventually when you allow yourself to feel safe in those deep feels, allowing someone else to hold you in that place so you feel safe, that's when we start trusting each other again. And also that's when we start making those deep connections so we can get into those intimate sexual and sensual relationships, and we actually feel empowered by them instead of going off the woundings of like, I'm not good enough, or I can't show them this, or I have to be the perfect person. You have to be the perfect you. And that is authentic. And that's when we start getting into those intimate and sexual relationships.
Sure.
Joe and I have a process that we've developed that's helpful. Because we can switch places in like who's feeling good and who's not feeling good. And
Totally.
when we're addressing,
Emotional hot potato.
That's
Right?
what we call it.
We call it emotional hot potato.
so when one of us is feeling like sad or wonky or whatever, do you want like empathy right now, or do you want solution? It's not to say solution doesn't have that empathy, but like sometimes you're not ready for the solution. There's always solution, right? There's always that energy, but sometimes we need to be in that energy. And that's something that has, I think, supported us both, because the other one's like, hey, let me lift you up, let's go here, and that's not always the time. It's not always the time for it. And so that's been a beautiful practice for us to integrate in.
We have this practice. So this is kind of a funny story, because what do men usually do when the feminine aspect of ourselves is like venting or like just expressing whatever it is? And sometimes the masculine thinks it's nagging, but really all we're doing is trying to express it in our fullness because we're trying to feel it.
Right.
But the masculine, and this doesn't mean men or women, we all have a masculine that wants a solution or wants to make everybody feel better, right?
Fixer.
The fixer aspect. And then we all have the feminine aspect that just needs to express or vibe with it or feel it or whatever, right? And so that's why I say masculine and feminine, not the guy and the girl, because we can take on either role.
Oh yeah.
And so Ryan's sitting there and he's like trying to like give me solutions. And I'm like, I don't need to be fixed. I just need you to hold space. And he's kind of frustrated and he goes, what does that look like? And I'm like, yes, hold space. So he does that. And I crawl into his lap like this. And I'm like, that feels so much better. So now we have, and we do this for like when he realizes he just needs to hold space, especially when we started this practice, he looked at me and goes, like, I'm here. I'm just holding for you. And I'm like, yay. Because I knew I could just be myself, let go. And then when I was ready for him, sometimes I just needed to be held. And then sometimes I'm like, well, what do you think? Or, how do you feel about that? And we teach other couples that are having a hard time, because here's the thing about relationships. Well, you could be in a relationship for 20 years and not have intimacy. And I have a lot of women come to me and go, how do I get my husband on board with this? He just wants to either fix me or he gets really frustrated with me and he thinks I'm illogical or whatever. And I'm like, start with the holding space. I know that sounds ridiculous, but like, tell him to just do this. And this is the physical symbol for both of you. He gets reminded like, oh, I'm not here to like create solution. I'm here just to listen. That's different, right? Because the energy is not going external. The energy is being receptive. Yeah. Holding space is just being receptive and honoring everything that's happening in this moment without thinking it's wrong or bad or needing it to change.
And from the masculine point of view, it's nice to physicalize. It's nice to have a physical representation. Now, this might not work for you. You might not be able to put your hands out there and hold space. But you might be able to hold space in a way like, for instance, sometimes when I get frustrated, Nikki and I are having an argument, I'll run around and pick things up and start cleaning things up. And it's not because like, oh my God, I really need to clean in this moment. It's because I need something physical to do with the energy. Nikki and I have developed a process of being able to go for a walk, because when we're out in nature, it frees up the space. Sometimes when Nikki gets really upset, she feels trapped. And in a house, it's a container, right? Especially if you're in a small room. It can feel that the energy is so big when you're in an argument or when you're having a rough time with each other. Having that tiny little space feels like a pressure cooker. So being able to walk outside and process with each other in nature is so much easier. And then being able to physicalize by actually physically walking. Like, I don't even think Nikki and I would have ever gotten married if we didn't go on hikes on a regular basis to work out all of the emotional stuff, the emotional baggage we had acquired over the 7 years of dating. So during our engagement process, we quite literally walked this really famous place in Los Angeles called Runyon Canyon. We walked that canyon at least on a daily basis, if not twice a day.
Oh,
and
we
just
were going back
constantly
roads
just talking. And like, if I got mad, I'd pick up a rock and throw it down or break a stick. It's just nice to have that physical outlet and not feel like I'm going to break a dish or flip over a garbage can or do something inside the house that is going to be detrimental. When you're outdoors, you have more of an open space, an open container to play with the emotions, and it helps to be in public because then you kind of like tamp down.
You're not going to be a complete jackwagon. But and having that, just the honest, like, permission just to have these conversations, and being that the conversations, I think, start intimacy. Because being authentic about what you're thinking and how you're feeling, that is true. Like, that's the foundation of intimacy.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you a question. I mean, so we're talking a lot about being in relationship, and this is wonderful and helpful for those who are in relationship. But what about intimacy and all this for people who are not? Is there anything that you feel like you can speak to or lend to for people who are not, who are, experiencing the same level of feelings and frustrations that we do have in relationship?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Well,
I mean,
I would ask,
Go ahead.
this is what I would ask. Are you asking how they get, like, if they want to get into a relationship and how to kind of start finding a partner that would have intimacy, or just having an intimate practice within themselves?
I think it's within the self. I think there's validity for both of those, but I think I'm speaking of for somebody who is comfortable in their singularity currently, how to develop it within themselves.
I would say you go back to what we spoke about really early with the Ida and the Pingala relationship, because every single human being has a masculine and a feminine aspect of the self. Mm-hmm. And being able to address those masculine and feminine energies, which is really actually a little easier to do when you're not in a relationship, because suddenly those two energies are much more pronounced within the self. And so you can start to tap into those energies and go, okay, think about the concept of masculinity, and think about these kind of stereotypically masculine concepts. And that will at least give you some context on what your masculine side feels like. So for instance, my masculine side really likes to be physical. My masculine side really likes to fix things or solve problems. My masculine side really likes to move, like wants to just move and do. My feminine side is a little bit more receptive. My feminine side is a little bit more open to interpretation or ideas, a little less worried about coming up with a solution, and more about the experiential side of things. And my feminine side can be a little bit, I don't want to say lazy, but, likes to be comfortable and wants to just kind of sit in the energy.
So I want to, because I know both of these aspects of you so much, and talking about this with, the masculine folks in your life, whether it be a lover or a father or a brother or whatever, when he goes into his feminine, because I think it's more conditioned that women can kind of bounce back in their masculine and feminine a little bit easier than a man can, because the way society is, like, we can be more masculine and that is celebrated. But a woman or a man who's a little bit more feminine is a little hard to tap into, because it's not necessarily celebrated for a man to be
certainly
feminine.
A lot more now than we were.
Totally. And it's changing. But at the same time, we're still in a transitional moment of this energy. And with Ryan, when he gets in his feminine, he gets really uncomfortable sometimes, and he gets vulnerable, and he's like, this feels really weird. And he almost feels embarrassed. And so I almost have to talk him through, like, it's okay to feel feminine. And I want to say that about us women too, because we've been, like, you've been conditioned. Don't feel your emotions. Very masculine. Be grateful now. That's masculine. Changing something, not dealing with the feminine. So sometimes we have to deal with our feminine a little bit more and get like, as a single person, and doing it as within yourself. Allow it, just giving permission slips, allowing yourself to feel uncomfortable, getting comfortable with the energy of vulnerability, allowing anger and the darker emotions to be okay. And having a communication with the self. And there's different ways to have these communications. You could do it with journaling. You could talk to yourself in a mirror. And all of these things are going to make you feel stupid and uncomfortable. And that is part of the process, is getting past the mind of going, this is really ridiculous. Yeah, because that's creativity. And if you are doing something with that critic voice, you're not going to get yourself to any part of healing or any part of knowing these deeper layers of the self. And the resistance is going to come up whether you like it or not, because that's the way growth is. So you have to allow yourself to get creative and find your ways to communicating with the self, whether that's painting. A lot of times when I'm painting, I'll go, oh, this painting is literally talking to me. Am I going crazy? And if you don't think you're going crazy during this, then you're not doing it right. Because there's going to be times where you feel absolutely insane. I'm talking to myself in the mirror.
Yep.
Yeah, you are.
I think ultimately it's a getting to know yourself process. And I think that one of the things that Nikki didn't bring up was the concept of meditation. Like, meditation is very much getting to know yourself. And I know that a lot of people have this misconception that when you meditate, you're supposed to stop all thoughts from happening and all feelings and just become into a void space and then just like sit in that void space like a yogi up in the Himalayas. But the truth is that you've got a lot to work through before you get to that level. And for most people, it's lifetimes that you have to work through before you get to that level. So allowing that purge process to happen when you're going through your meditative process, allowing those emotions and those thoughts and those feelings to arise, and then just looking at them, observing them. One of the best techniques I'd ever been given when I first started meditation is to imagine yourself sitting on the river. And then each thought that you get is like a little boat floating by on the river. You can watch that boat float by, but you don't swim out and jump on the boat, right? And that's not attaching to your thoughts. That's not attaching to your feelings that come up during meditation, because what you're supposed to do is observe. Just observe. And when these things start to come up, they start to float down the river metaphorically, just witness. That's all you have to do. And that witnessing process will help you to better understand yourself, because you'll be like, oh, that is a boat that comes by a lot. I have this particular boat is I'm angry at my mother, right? Let's just say that's it. That boat, I'm angry at my mother, just keeps on floating by. Every time I sit down, it keeps floating by. Cool. Then just observe it and take in whatever that boat is trying to teach you, or that lesson is trying to teach you, because these things they constantly come up in your psyche for a reason. And I think if you really want to get to know yourself, sit with yourself. That's the key. Sit with yourself.
Yeah. I want to address a question really fast. Paisley asked, Guy Blooming, do you find the masculine feminine ratio relates to astro chart placements? And I just want to say,
good question.
It is a great question. It's very interesting how we have definitely assigned masculine and feminine energies to every sign. And generally, the traditional way of looking at it is that the water and earth signs are the more feminine signs, and the fire and air signs are the more masculine. But I've taught astrology classes, and I see masculine and feminine energies in all of the signs, and I think it's just the same as it is within us. There can be tendencies towards very, like, fire signs for instance are definitely more active, right? And the masculine energy can be more connected to the activity. However, fire signs are also very emotional, actually. Mm-hmm. So that can definitely connect more to that feminine energy. I usually prefer to use yin and yang rather than masculine and feminine, because I think we have such strong mental concepts around what masculinity is and what femininity is. Mm-hmm. And when we use the terms yin and yang, we can soften to them, because we don't have such strong boundaries of like what this means to be a man or what this means to be a woman. So I usually do that, but I would say that all of the signs, they have the Ida and the Pingala. All the signs have those combined energies, and the more we can, work with them in ourselves, the more we can come into union within ourselves. So
totally.
And she said, Paisley, I don't know what you are, but Paisley said, I was thinking more of masculine, feminine, of planets, not the signs. And I say the same thing of the planets. A lot of the planets have this strong masculine energy that we connect into. Like Neptune. Neptune was a god, right? Neptune ruling Pisces. And yet, when we tune into the Neptune energy, there can be a lot of like yin in it, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of that femininity. So I don't necessarily subscribe to it being just one way or the other. I
Right.
find, just like in ourselves, there is both.
Mhm.
In the planets and the science. So,
It's interesting because usually the way that I was taught astrology, that most of the planets are masculine in nature, except for Venus and the moon. But then when you start looking at the asteroids, you start getting these like female kind of, I don't know, aspects that are so important. And I found when I dug into the asteroids that I got to know my personality, my personal life, like these really beautiful moments in my life that are extremely important came up. And I was like, oh, it's so funny how we put a lot of weight onto like these masculine energies. And I want to talk about that, not just like astrology, but we only know about the masculine archangels. We know because the way that we are on the planet right now is really focused on more masculine behaviors and aspects rather than the feminine ones. So really, when you're looking at your astrology, you're looking at your spirituality, you're looking at any part of your life, you have to do the due diligence right now to balance the yin or the feminine energies, just because society is kind of slanted at the moment.
Yeah.
And to have the feminine awaken within you, and that is, so when we talk about tantra, there's two energies that tantra, in my opinion, is the masculine and feminine energies working in harmony with one another. And so when you're looking at tantric energies, you're looking at the Shiva energy of the masculine, of consciousness, of like anything is possible. It's that very masculine yang energy meeting with the creative creation energy of the feminine, of the Shakti, of the life force energy. And we right now villainize that in society, thinking that anything that's built of the material is evil or satanic. But really, we're dealing with physical energy all the time. And that's the feminine, and learning how to work with both of in harmony with each other is the way that it's not just the feminine rising, it's the feminine rising and the masculine listening to the feminine in harmony with each other, because we can't push the masculine out. We need the masculine. We do. And it's extremely important. It's like you can't have one without the other. And when we learn how to work with these in harmony with each other, that's when the magic happens. That's where creation happens. That's when you have really healthy relationships, not just with your lover, but with an understanding of other people, where they're coming from, having different perspectives, even dealing with each other in a more mature way politically. Right? Because I think both political affiliations kind of lean to a certain perspective. And I think it's also very, I don't know, kind of like it makes you very aware of how the masculine and the feminine are not listening, and they blame each other. It's like the mother and the father like fighting for custody over the children. It's like, stop, it's not helping anybody. Right? We're stuck in this mentality. And if we start learning how to work with these masculine and feminine, the yin and the yang energies in a more like, they're both pretty, I think we'll be able to heal faster.
Yeah, and to your point, Mimi, about the yin and the yang, I think that the using the verbiage that takes some of the stigma away is really important, because the lessons that we need to learn from these energies are only gonna get through if we can if we can get past our social conditioning, if we can get past these ideas that we've created in our head, and then the labels of good and bad, right? Because if we had a good relationship with our father and a bad relationship with our mother, we might find the masculine to be positive and the negative, and the feminine to be negative. And you could do that vice versa as well. But I think the importance is balance and realizing that the masculine and the feminine live on a spectrum. There isn't, we talk about duality with the sacral chakra, but there's also this blending, right? So you've got masculine on one end and feminine on the other. And there's a scale between the two. So if you look at feminine or yin as the black, right, the dark energy of the yin yang symbol, and the masculine is the white, right, there's this gray scale, right? So as you're moving from one to the other, there's a scale there. And I think that
it's like night to into
dawn,
day,
and then there's twilight, and there's also dawn, right? So those moments are a little bit on the gray side. So like the point being is that when you're talking about whether it's astrology or the chakras or anything that has a dualistic nature to it, one might lean a little bit further to the masculine or lean a little bit further to the feminine, but they're not going to be all black or all white. And I think that when you ask the question of which one's masculine, which one's feminine, our minds, because they're conditioned this way, naturally want to go, well, this is all masculine or this is all feminine. This particular chakra is a masculine chakra. This particular planet is a feminine planet. When the truth is, it's on a bit of a scale. And then I'll take it even a step further and say it's your relationship to those particular energies. So when you start to ask about a particular planet, it's like that planet may lean towards a masculine energy, but when you interact with that planet, because you are a very masculine person, it might bring out your feminine side more. Carl Jung talked about the anima and the animus, and these were basically the idea that you had like your ego or your conscious self, and then you have your subconscious self, which is kind of like your dream state, or your higher self, if you will. If you are a masculine person, he almost said almost inevitably your higher self was feminine. And vice versa. If you are a feminine person, then your higher self is going to be masculine because it's trying to receive balance. It's trying to teach you balance. So your higher self is going to speak to you from the other side of the coin and try to give you that other perspective so you have that whole.
Maybe that's why we don't hear it as well. Because we're like,
I can't listen to my higher self because it keeps telling me to feel my feelings, and that's too feminine.
I just want to bring this back astrologically to our lessons incoming again for 2023. This is not going to be till July that we have the node shift, but in July you're going to have the node shift out of Taurus and Scorpio into Aries and Libra, the South Node in Libra, and Libra represents balance. I say to people a lot, I just did a reading for a Libra earlier. Like, I think Libra is the most important sign of the zodiac because I think one of our most important lessons, at least at this time, is that lesson of balance. All of the signs are important, but like, oh my gosh, that lesson of balance. And as I'm listening to this and how we're being called to integrate, in order to fully be ourselves, Aries represents our I am, who we are, being able to show up and take action in the world as we are. We need that South Node. We need that balance. And it is the balance of so many things, including our inner yin and yang and feminine, masculine, all of this. So finding this balance within ourselves, and part of finding that balance, just to bring it back, is allowing yourself to come through, allowing those emotions, allowing the feelings, all of that. So it's all of this full circle energy that's, circling around and pulling us through.
And Libra, correct me if I'm wrong, also deals with relationships.
Yes.
I think, as Mimi said, next year we're going into the South Node, where this is where in Vedic astrology they talk about the South Node being more about the internal world, right?
Rahu and Ketu.
Mm-hmm. And Ketu, Rahu would be the North Node, which is like where you're going, where you're directing the energy, and that's very masculine. And the South Node, or the Ketu energy, would be very internal, feminine, yin, right? Like go within. And so the way that I've been heard described by some Western astrologers is like, the North Node's like positive, this is what we should be doing, and you got to watch out for the South. And I'm like,
but in Vedic astrology, it's the opposite,
which is so funny.
Yeah. Like, you got to be careful with this one because he's going to try to get you to do stuff, or this one's going to have you listen to your intuition. It's like, okay, maybe we should listen to both.
I I think that it's just like we're speaking about the yin and the yang. Like the polarity signs in astrology, like there are checks and balances, like this is our government, right? And so we need to utilize the energy of the south node in order to fulfill the north node. That's how I personally look at it, and so and it doesn't mean the south node where we can be challenged. Just to bring a little astro lesson, it can be really easy to fall or lean into the south node too much and like kind of ignore the north node. And so that's where we have to bring the awareness to, but we still want to take like those gifts, like what's easy to lean into and utilize it to feed into the north node energy. So if you think about it, so Rahu and Ketu is like the head and the tail of the dragon, but the tail of the dragon is what helps propel the dragon, right? Like dragons use their tails. And so that's how we want to utilize this to move forward.
100%. Yeah.
Yes. And because we're going into Libra energy and Aries energy, so the head of the dragon would be Aries. It's the self. It's what you identify with.
It's the fire.
But you cannot, but you can't let the tail of this relationship, your relationship will be your foundation. So the way that you're in relationship does really reflect who you are.
Yeah.
And I think with this Libra energy in this next year, looking at our relationships, looking at that shadow aspect of our relationships and really starting to heal that. And I think the best way to start healing relationship is healing the relationship, like Mimi was saying, with the self first and like really seeing how that's playing out. But if you are in relationship, it is going to be, very important to look at the relationship you have with your partner. And because that is going to be a reflection of the relationship you are having internally. If you are at odds with that person, what is in odds with you? I have some ladies coming to me recently that they're having a hard time in their marriage because they don't feel like their partner listens to them, but also everybody else isn't listening to them. And I'm like, okay, where are we feeling powerless? Where are we not standing in our authentic truth? Or where are we not listening? Right. So it's like, so looking really at what that is, how it's affecting us, and maybe how we're folding in and not really allowing ourselves to feel confident to say it in a way that's not demanding, but more commanding, more like, okay, this is just how I feel. This is the way that I'm going to be. Like, I need to be heard here. And so when we start looking at those things, those dark sides of our relationship, it's very important to not just go into victim villain mentality, because victim and villain mentality will shut you down from feeling empowered, and also be like, there can be healing here. Because it's really easy to go, that person's a narcissist and now I could just cut everybody off. Well, that's not healing relationship. What is it in this dynamic between the narcissist that you have that you feel like you needed? And when you look at that like, oh, I didn't believe in myself, so I let them say the things that I took on myself. Okay, well, because you're not going to be able to hide from every narcissist in the world. We all have.
Especially not in the West.
No, we all, and by the way, I want to say this. Yes, some people are at a 10 on narcissism, but I want to say that we all have an inner narcissist. We would have to. And it's like saying like you
called your solar plexus.
Yeah.
you can't navigate without having a self, but the key is to realize that there's, again, balance. And trying to find that balance where you're not getting squished on and just basically letting people walk all over you, but you're also not being domineering. You try to find that balance. And one of the things, as you guys talk, that keeps coming up in my head is this, if you guys are familiar with Don Miguel Ruiz, he's very popular or famous for writing a book called The Four Agreements. But one of the books that we love just as much, maybe even more, is a book that he wrote called The Mastery of Love. And when he talks about the mastery of love, he talks about how important it is for you to become whole as a person before you go into relationship. Otherwise, you either become a drug dealer or an addict. And I think we've all had the unhealthy relationship where we are giving and giving and giving, and the other person is taking and taking and taking, or the opposite, where we are taking and taking and taking, the other person is giving and giving and giving. That is an energetic play. That's that yin and yang energy. And so as we start to move into relationship with ourselves, we become more aware of where those things can be balanced and imbalanced, and how to kind of play with that energy to find that balance. And then we can take that knowledge and experience and maturity to our partner and understand how to balance the energy between the people. So harnessing the energy within yourself and learning how to balance it is so important, especially if you're going to go into a relationship, because now you have to navigate your yin and yang and your partner's yin and yang. And then there's a third one, which is the relationship's yin and yang. There's literally a third entity. So people think of relationship as like, this is me and this is my partner. And that is true. But there's a third entity, and that's the relationship itself. That relationship takes on a yin and yang quality.
Shoshumna.
Yeah, exactly. Ida, Pingala, Shoshumna, the coming together of those two energies. So being able to realize, like in a particular moment, like Nikki brought up earlier, where I'm in my feminine, then Nikki kind of has to take on the masculine. Like, come on, get up, get off the couch, let's go. You know, she has to embrace her masculine to balance me out, and vice versa.
I got you, babe.
Yeah,
I'll hold you.
Yeah,
I'll hold you.
But it's like you have to allow yourself to recognize and acknowledge the fact that you can fall into a masculine or feminine energy, and then your partner needs to recognize that so that they can help you balance that, and they can take on the role of the masculine if you need it, or take on the role of the feminine if you need it. And this isn't something you're just going to snap and it's going to happen. This takes diligence. It takes time.
You guys have like 18 months, I think, that it's going to be like that. We're going to be really diving into this in a collective way. Because I think I also think in this day and age, relationships are so important more than ever, just because we're so isolated that we've been told to not trust, or like if you interact with somebody, you're going to kill them. Like that programming is really in there, whether you like it or not. And so we need to rediscover what our relationships are, and that our resources, our time, our energy is important, and who we want to allow to, who do we want to relate to. And I think creating healthy relationships, a healthy relationship with our emotions, a healthy relationship with relating with one another, a healthy relationship and how we communicate our needs,
and a healthy relationship with sex.
Oh, yes.
So we want to start, because we said we were going to talk tantra, and I've been sitting back here going, "What are we going to talk about sex, y'all?" And y'all are like, la, 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 yin and yang and life and love and let's talk about sex. So basically sex, this baby. Energetic dynamic that I was talking about also happens in sex. So there are times in sex where the man just wants to lay back and receive. That is feminine energy. This is crucial. The woman has to take on a masculine role in those instances in order for there to be sexual chemistry. If a man lays back and goes, "I'd like to receive," and a woman goes, "I want to receive too," you're not getting anywhere, right? Suddenly you are dead.
There's no initiation either.
So, and here's the key, and Nikki and I have come back on this a lot. The man doesn't always have to initiate. This is important, because if the man is always initiating, then the man is always in the masculine energy, and the woman is always receiving. And if you want to really have tantric energy, you have to be willing to play with the energies in yourself. So Nikki, even though it's a little bit uncomfortable for her to be an initiator and take on that masculine energy, when she does, it's very powerful. It's very effective. And so learning how to manipulate these energies through meditation and through communication and through awareness will then translate wonderfully into sexual encounters.
Well, and I have to say this too, because I have a lot of women coming to me for sexual support with their relationships. And I have to say, like, there's a complaint that men, this is like it's a younger paradigm, right? Of like, men they can get aroused fully in 6 minutes. It takes 40.
Aroused? Shit, we're gonna be done in 6 minutes.
Women, it takes I want to say this is like basic sexual psychology stuff that I learned in college, but I think it's like 46 minutes or 42 minutes for a woman to be fully aroused. Well, I think I can get there a little bit faster than 42 minutes, but
Well, and let's just say fully aroused is a, I mean, like, there's a spectrum there, right? Because like you can be aroused, like, yeah, I'm into it, and then you can be fully aroused and going fully Reagan exorcist style, your head spinning around and you're speaking in tongues. Like we got to consider the scale here. 46 minutes is a long time to get real high on the scale. My hand gestures don't work.
There's that foreplay aspect, and
Yes.
like and learning how to initiate is, I think, extremely important for all parties involved. Because that's something that me and him, like, let's get personal here, like that's the one thing that we struggle with,
initiation,
and
sure.
that is the masculine and feminine of figuring out, or even knowing in that moment, like, all right, what's taking on that role in that moment of like, and how the feminine receives from the masculine when the initiation is being connected. And these are really important things to talk about when we're talking about sexuality, because that's the safety aspect.
Right.
There's also moods and emotions that go in there. I'm not in the mood.
Yeah, totally.
Right.
Well, and I've got some medicine for any guys out there, or people who embrace masculine energy, is something that I've had to learn recently that it's been really effective for me. And this is a lesson of the sacral chakra, is this cyclical nature of the energy. So what'll happen in a sexual encounter is that it'll be like the energy will be real high and everybody's, ready to go. And this can be a crucial moment for a man, because this could be where the sexual moment ends for a man. Right? Because once it's done for a man, it's kind of done. Whereas a woman can have multiple orgasms and can continue to go. And we can get into the minutia of that later, but basically there's this cycle where things start to get real intense, right? And if you can hold back just long enough, that cycle drops off, and then you're like, oh no, where'd the energy go? Right? So there's this fear, like, oh no, we're not gonna, we've lost it, right? If you trust that dip, if you trust that moment, that dark side of the moon, if you will, of sexual energy, it will come back online. It will come back around. And here's the crucial moment. If you allow it to cycle back around, the next time it comes back around, it's a little bit more intense. It's a little bit more exciting. It's a little bit more fun. So one of the really key moments to doing tantric energy with your partner is allowing one of those peak cycles to go by, but not finish, and then pull back and allow things to chillax. Grab some water, grab some food, massage each other's feet, do something real
talk.
Talk, and then wait for that energy to pick back up again. Trust that it will, because when it comes back around, it comes back around greater. And every time you make a loop around here, it increases in intensity and size. And that's when you can have these really profoundly amazing sexual experiences, because you trust those cycles. And that is such a huge lesson of the sacral chakra, is trust the cycles.
That's huge. I mean, that goes for everything. That goes for your emotions, trust the cycles. That goes for your creativity, trust those cycles. Because if you've ever done a creative project, you're like, oh, it's shit, I hate it. And then, inspiration, right? And
oh yeah.
For all of those things, trust those cycles. That's huge.
Yeah, well, and the sacral chakra is directly connected to the moon. And if you see, most representations of the sacral chakra have some sort of like waxing and waning aspects of the moon. Usually you'll see them on the 6 petals of the lotus that represent like the yantra, if you will, of the sacral chakra. There's usually like, there's a full moon on one end, and then there's a new moon on the other, and then you have a waning and a waxing cycle. So the moon very much represents these energies. It's like the energy is dissipating, and now the energy is coming back online. And learning how to work with that energy and trust those cycles, and not try to manipulate or just throw your hands up and be like, I'm done with it. Trusting those cycles is crucial.
I love
that. I also want to say something about the feminine, because
of course you would.
What? With sexuality. So this has been really helpful for us. If you're having a hard time, whether you're single or you're or in a partnership, of feeling being in the mood. I think that's a major complaint for a lot of men, of like, there's that like thing of like, I'm not in the mood, or I'm tired. And it's really relevant, but sometimes tired or feeling fatigued is a form of resistance.
Well, here's a good question, men. This is a good question you can present, or not just men, but let's call you initiators. For you initiators out there, here's a good question to throw out there. Are you willing to find the mood? Giving them an opportunity to go, I'm not in the mood in this moment, but am I willing to get there? Am I willing to go through a process? And then the next question is, what can I do to help?
That's a great question.
Okay. Are you willing to be in the mood? Good. What can I do to help?
Well, and I want to bring this in because this is something that's really kind of beautiful that you've taught me is there's two different sides of our nervous system. There's the fight or flight nervous system. And when you're in fight or flight and you don't feel safe, you're going to shut down and your hormones are going to be a little off and you're not going to want to go into the other nervous system, which is rest and digest, but Ryan likes to call it, which we really like, feed or breed.
Feed and breed. Yeah. That's your parasympathetic nervous system. So you have your sympathetic and your parasympathetic. The sympathetic is fight or flight, right? It's like, oh shit, something's wrong. I gotta, fix it, right?
And then once you're out of that, then you can feel depleted, exhausted, tired, like you don't feel like you're in the mood. But if you can stimulate that parasympathetic nervous system, and notice like, oh, maybe I've just been in so much stress lately. That's why I don't want to do this.
Yep.
But I'm telling you, if you've been stuck in fight or flight and you can get your body to feel safe and have a sexual connection, not even just with your partner, doing it for yourself, it restores Shakti energy. It restores life force. Yep. And you don't have to finish if you don't want to, because sometimes that energy of finishing it is a depletion of it. You can cultivate it, but if you can convince, okay, I might feel fatigued right now because I'm being resistant to that life force energy to come back in, and really soften around that and just do some things to get yourself into the, at least even soften of like, how do I get myself into the mood? And one way that I've noticed that really gets me back into it is dance. Mm-hmm. Dancing in, like putting on, and I will send you guys some Spotify Chakra playlists. I will tell you, I have some ones that like, Ryan's like, put that one on, put that one on. Because I drop right into my body and I become this tantric goddess that like begins to really drop back into my body. And the reason why you're not in the mood is because you're not in your body. I know this to be true because I suffer from it.
I'll take that a step further. There's a lot of folks out there. So the sacral is also connected to your sense of taste. Okay. And so there's a lot of people out there who put their sexual energy into their food. And I know this is a kind of a touchy thing because some people will put their sexual energy into their food because it's safer than sex. Now, it could be because you and your partner are having an issue, right? Or it could be because you don't have a partner, right? And you can start to put that sexual, especially if you have a sweet tooth, listen to this. You can get your sexual response from food, especially chocolate. Chocolate quite literally releases
something rich.
Yeah, oxytocin from the brain, and oxytocin is a chemical that's released when you have sex. So you can get the same biochemical response from eating sweets that you would from connecting with a partner or connecting with yourself. So when you feel a craving for sweets, that can be, and most likely is, sexual energy starting to come online. So if you can repurpose that energy and take it away from whatever that sweet craving is and put it into your partner or into yourself, you can start to harness that energy and physicalize it. And you can start to work with those cravings in a way that turns it into a different kind of craving, a sexual craving, instead of this sensual craving of
that
taste.
Also helps with emotional eating because
Huge.
Another thing with the sacral is emotion, and a lot of people emotionally eat. So instead of like really being unaware, like, oh, I'm emotionally, when you start eating because of your emotions, get into your body instead. It's like, I'm having a redirect that
energy
and go into, you don't have to work out per se, but dance. Move because
swimming, get in water.
If you can connect to that sacral and really express it in a different way, it starts letting go of the binge cravings. This is something I work with a ton of clients of with binge, I've worked so many binging things, right? That doesn't even mean food, alcohol too. Binging alcohol is also
alcohol is connected to the sacral as well.
So these are all, if you're going, oh my God, these are all things I deal with, it's sacral. You don't have a relationship with your sacral right now. And that's okay. There's so many different ways. Dance.
We use the word relationship a lot because relationships take cultivation. Relationship, you don't just have a relationship. You meet somebody, like our kids will be on the playground and be like, do you want to be friends? Yeah. And then now they have a relationship, right? Adults don't usually work that way. We usually kind of feel each other out a little bit, and that's totally fine. You can do that with your energy centers. You can feel them out. That's what our program's all about. We're trying to increase people's connection or relationship to each energy center. So we spend weeks connecting to each energy center and massaging that relationship and building that trust and working to make sure that you know who you are on a very internal, intimate level. And we work diligently to come up with tools to help you do that. And I really think that the journey of Ascension does that. It really helps you to develop a relationship with all these energy centers. And if nothing else, at the very, very minimum, it gives you awareness of which energy centers are out of balance and need more attention.
Beautiful. I want to say, Paisley said, I feel called out. I just ate 2 peanut butter cookies. This is not a call out. You can still have pleasure. You can still enjoy food. Absolutely. And it goes back to that balance energy, right?
100%. And you can bring food into your sexual energy.
It's not our
favorite. We're not big on like feeding each other. But that could work really well for you. So don't, just because we don't like it doesn't mean it doesn't work.
I'm a Virgo. I'm like, I'll feed myself. I don't like eating food off of hot, sweaty bodies.
Yeah, let's have sushi off the naked body.
I'm not. That's not
room
my
temperature sushi? No, I'm good. But the point is that there is a connection energetically, right? There is a connection to your sense of taste and your sexuality. And that sacral chakra is going to help you. So it's more of awareness than it is about like, don't do this, do this. Yeah, if you feel like eating a cookie, just eat a cookie. But at the same time, if it's a habit and you're like, I keep coming back to this cookie, what are you getting from that cookie? Is there something that you're neglecting on the other side of that energetic coin? And if it is, then let's put some awareness there.
And that's where your intimacy, that's where you might need more intimacy. And
Look
more
inside.
Connection.
Look in.
I want to bring it back to the dancing 1 second too, because I grew up as a dancer. My favorite form of dance is actually belly dance, but so much dance also involves like moving that sacral area, right? Like the hip and that area, and so it's so engaging to do that. And just to bring it to the astro, Pisces energy. One of the energies of Pisces is the energy of dance. Yeah. So here it comes again. Full circle, how this energy is engaging what we will be literally like beamed at by the planets over the next few years.
And I want to say this about dance. There is so much resistance around dance, and I don't know why that is fully, but there's 2 things that I see that most people resist: singing and dancing. And singing is the way that we like have to express ourselves. So if we feel like we're a bad singer, we feel really embarrassed, or we feel immensely vulnerable when we sing in public. But yet there's something so compelling about it when we're in the car or in the shower, we like belt it out. Can we start doing that in public? Maybe, maybe not, but at least singing is one way to help heal that throat chakra. But if singing is the thing that heals the throat chakra, I'm telling you, dance is a form of healing of the sacral.
And this is really important. Dance doesn't mean you have to take a dance class. You don't have to learn choreography. We're doing choreography. You don't have to do that. You can just simply move. And Mimi, you brought up a great point about belly dancing and the hips, right? So where does the sacral chakra live? It lives in the hips. It lives in the pelvis. If you learn how to move your hips, just stand, listen to the music, find the rhythm, and move your hips and allow your body to start to kind of manipulate how you move. Nikki does something fairly regularly called ecstatic dancing. Ecstatic dancing, there's no choreography. There's no structure. I mean, some of them have some structure, but most of the part, it's wide open to whatever your body feels, because it's about connecting to your body through movement. It's not necessarily about getting the right moves down.
And music is connected so much to our emotions and our memories. And so it's like, if you find a song that you're like, oh my God, and you start to move your body, all of a sudden tears are bursting out of your eyes, or that anger that you've been suppressing. There are times where I'll put drum beats on and I'll be on the floor like, and I'm just like expressing this rage in a playful way. That is a really healthy way to express emotion and express what's going on. Crawl around the floor, look like it. Like I said, am I going crazy? Yeah, I look like an idiot. I'm running around and I look like a dragon on the floor. But to be honest with you, isn't that so much more healthy than me and you like screaming at each other or throwing a cell phone at somebody? Like that's, like,
the energy's got to go somewhere.
it's got to go
You
somewhere.
might as well give it a vehicle that works well. And I think this also goes back to container work too. When you want to do something like this, create a space. Create a sacred space to do some sacred dancing. And if you don't already have a sacred space in your house, make one. Give yourself room to experience your body.
And express and play with this, because I think being playful with your emotions and your sexual nature is it's going to make it feel a lot more safe and accessible to do. And maybe more in the mood. I have to say, Ryan's like, you want to dance tonight? Because we know where that leads. But it doesn't just lead into, I think the problem is a lot of people have this weird interpretation of sex, where sex can be transcendental. It could be this really beautiful, spiritual, connected, healing practice. But you have to do these things before it, because you have to feel safe in your body. You got to feel connected to your partner. And when I asked a client of mine, I'm like, why don't you dance for him? And she looked at me and she started sweating. She turned red. And I was like, you've been with him for 20 years. I think it's going to be okay to dance in front of him. And she did.
Start with the safety dance.
The safety dance.
You could dance if you want to. You could leave your cares behind.
And she said she did it. She goes, well, I'm going to do it for my birthday, because he can't say no to me on my birthday. And I'm like, I don't think he's going to say no to you anyway, but okay. But she did it, and she's like, oh my God. And I'm like, I know. I know. It's a thing. It like connects you to yourself first. It really does. And then once you feel safe and seen, and like, he was like, I had to let go of some of the awkwardness of like I like to watch, like. But once he was like,
and the voyeur and exhibitionist energies are very masculine and feminine, right? Because liking to watch is a feminine energy. So the reason why I felt awkward was because I had to embrace my feminine energy of liking to watch, not being involved directly, but watching. And she has to embrace her masculine energy of being seen. I want to be seen. Look at me, right? So exhibitionist, it can be very much a yin or a yang energy, and a voyeur could be very much a yin energy.
And when I allowed myself to not feel shameful to be seen, and he allowed himself to be comfortable and allowing him to not have to be the aggressor, this was such a beautiful connection point of intimacy and initiation for us, because I felt really comfortable in my body. And then I got to go to him, or he can come to me. And then we met at a way that was like already connected. And then it just set the stage for a beautiful process of our own intimacy to be engaged into. It became a spiritual practice for us. Mm-hmm. And this is a beautiful way. And if you don't have a partner, that's a beautiful way to start your own practice of getting to know yourself intimately and sexually. Dance in front of a mirror. What? Naked. What? Yes, that feels so uncomfortable at first. But the more that you fall in love with your physical form, no matter what you look like, that's intimacy. Mm-hmm. That's self-love.
You brought up the word shame, and that's definitely a vibration that can be a challenge vibration that can be encapsulated in the sacral chakra if you have a remedy or healing or a way to work through shame, because I know that's been a huge thing for me in my life. Like, I don't even know where it even, well, I do. Like ancestral shame, like moving through that in me has been one of my biggest processes that I'm for sure not done with. But I definitely connected into sacral energy.
Yeah. Well, I think the first step is to acknowledge that you have it, right? And you've already done that just by bringing it up. Then the second step is to look at it, give it the attention that it needs, and realize that shame isn't where something comes from. Shame is a symptom of something else. So realizing that you need to put some attention there so that you can start to trace it back to where it's coming from. That's the key. The shame itself is that impulse, that feeling, that sensation. And a lot of times it's so hard to get past that to where it came from.
Shame shuts us down.
Yeah.
Like, it's not one of those aggressor ones. Shame makes you want to crawl behind a freaking rock and go into obscurity.
And
like
hide.
It does not want to be seen.
Yeah.
So you have to bring that masculine of like, it's okay. I'm going to look at you now. We have to look at this.
A lot of times it's really good to work with the archetypes with this one. So shame is very much connected to this orphan archetype, this part of you, this like inner child that wants to hide and kind of isolate and sit in a corner and go, woe is me. Nobody loves me. Everybody hates me. I guess I'll go eat worms. Right. So that aspect of you, if you can give that shame an archetypical character, you know what I mean? Like maybe it's a younger version of yourself. Maybe it's little orphan Annie. Maybe, you know what I mean? Like give it a character and allow that character to express where it's coming from. Then it's less, it feels less close to you. It feels less personal so that you can step back and look at it from a more objective point of view.
And I'm going to try to do this as Cliff Notes as possible. So
we're opening up a can of worms here.
So the sacral it is kind of the center of shame. So if the root holds fear, the sacral will hold shame. And there's a couple of different reasons why. Mother. Everything is in the womb over here, right? So you might be picking up ancestral shame for your mother's side,
or
grandmother,
feminine line.
Feminine line. You can, whether you male, female, you might be picking it up for the feminine side. The second thing that this might be connected to is your first sexual experiences. I'm telling you, it's really like, and those sexual experiences may happen through puberty or before that. The shame or the relationship.
Yeah, if it happens before puberty, that's a really defining moment. It's gonna
not just from external people, internally, like being caught masturbating before you're in that puberty age, or exploring, or the way that your parents were like, ew, don't touch that. Like whatever that is that's where that starts. So that's why Ryan's saying like shame is just like the symptom. You kind of gotta look where it's coming from.
Yeah, you gotta dig a little deeper. You can put on your scuba gear and start swimming to the bottom of that shame and find out where it's coming from.
And when you start to realize where it is, and then also where you're like carrying it. Sometimes we carry it in our body, and then we like feel so shameful of being seen physically, or our body parts, or that's too big, or that's too small, or that thing's sagging, or whatever that might be, or I have cellulite there, especially for women. If it's coming towards the body, then you have to do practices that are going to help you see, feel, and meet it. So you have to do it in the mirror if you're doing it with the body. I know that feels really intense, but the more that you can love yourself in that place.
I have a side note for women here. There is a man who loves your body type. I promise you. There is a man who loves your body type.
There's multiple men.
Because you talk to men and you think every man wants to have this, you know, like whatever society has deemed as the perfect woman body type. There are guys out there who aren't interested in that at all. They're more interested in this body type or this body type. We all have, just like with food, we all have preferences, and your body type might be just the preference of the guy that you're looking for. So let go of the idea that you need to have a perfect body and just embrace the body you have. And confidence is the most sexy thing you can wear.
I love that. Thank you for that, man. Like, honestly, yay, because I think sometimes in our head we
Yeah.
we think that we need to look or be a certain way, and when we don't, we just have to be ourselves. Um,
Well, it's kind of like the male equivalent would be like, I have to be rich and successful in order for a woman to love me.
and okay, I'm going to say this to men, and I know we have more women talk, but men have a really big thing about size of their penis, and it's like it's a thing, and most women, like, we just need it to
operate,
function
well.
like we're like good, like we're not as picky as you think we are. I think porn has like really programmed men to thinking that they need to look a certain way, and
Right.
that can bring a lot of sexual shame to men of like, I'm not good enough, or I'm not big enough, or I'm not doing it right, or whatever that might be, and that can shut a man down. And so this is why when you're looking,
the antidote to that is a woman communicating to their partner how much they love that particular appendage. That's huge, right? And communicating like, hey, you are doing it right. Touch here, touch there, faster, slower, softer, harder. These things are crucial because we don't know. We've never been a woman before, at least not in this lifetime. So we don't know what feels good and what doesn't feel good. If you don't tell us, then we're kind of, feeling around in the dark, hoping that we land upon something that works. And when we do, then we're like, "Oh, that button works." And you just keep pressing that button.
we're not a video game controller,
right? But yes, you are. You can control us with the way you speak, right? So you can use your own sensual verbal way, and you can do this by saying exactly what you need, or you can just use the kind of hot cold method. If you start to moan a little bit more, then you're doing the right thing, and if you start to moan a little bit less, you're kind of on the cold side. So there's a way you can play with this where the woman can kind of guide the male. And what's really cool is if you do this frequently enough, you won't have to anymore, because you'll have built this trust.
Women, don't fake it. That's bad.
Oh, don't. Don't. I mean, because then they're just going to keep doing the thing that you faked it on, thinking that was what did it. Like, you want to paint yourself into a corner, fake an orgasm. You'll never, ever get the result you're looking for, because he's just going to keep going towards that route that he thinks works. So the key is show, tell, explain, guide. Because the masculine needs that. It needs to be guided by the feminine.
So to finish the shame thing, especially with women, we have a lot of things that social says that that's good and that's bad, especially when we're learning. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of slut shaming in middle school and high school that you may have to clean up. Something I had to.
And then in college, there's a lot of slut seeking.
Yes. And so what you have to do with that is just get really comfortable in the way that you like to express your own sexual nature, mm-hmm. and not apologize for it. Whether it's voyeuristic, whether it's exhibitionist, or whether it's a little bit of both, or whether it's whatever.
It could just be where you're at that time.
I mean, sexuality is so fascinating. Ryan and I love like documentaries to like these fetishes and things like that, because they're so interesting. Things that we are holding in this container are very unique. And if you can really be honest with yourself of what turns you on without shame, and you do it in a healthy container with consent, there's so much beauty of expression and understanding yourself in so many different facets. Don't be afraid to be awkward. Don't be afraid to make mistakes, and don't be afraid to make a mess. Oh yeah, that is sacral talking right there. I mean, that's it. If you can follow those 3 rules, then you are on the path to some amazing sexual discovery. Life discovery. Yeah.
This all feels like it comes back to that Rumi quote: how you make love is how you are with God, right?
You got it.
Well, we came full circle, y'all.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I feel complete. You guys feel good?
Yeah. If you want to take us through that meditation, or actually,
let's kind of talk about one more thing before that. Mm-hmm. So we have a couple of things. Mimi has her end of the year readings, the beginning of the year readings, where she looks through your entire year with your astrology, which is super helpful. especially what we talked about. If you
Yes.
need help with your relationships,
It's kind of like the farmer's almanac of your year. You can get an idea of what's coming, so
Yes.
you can wear the right clothes.
Yes, and also know how to deal with that personally. Like, we gave you a lot of tools. Mimi gives you tools that are perfect for you and really allows you to kind of know what's going on with you, so you're not like, what's happening? It's like, oh yeah, I knew this was coming. This is when I really have to buckle down and like help heal this.
Totally.
Is there anything else you want to say about that? Because I just totally did a commercial for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Year ahead readings, they're just wonderful. It gives you a good barometer of what you're going to be facing lesson wise for the year ahead. You can always book a regular reading as well, but the year ahead ones are just really great overview of like the major lessons coming in. And we definitely have some shifts. Oh, we just got a question that I think would be so great to just address like in 5 minutes if we can. Are you willing to dig in? Okay, Michelle said, can you address how this may relate to sexual assault, trauma, and gentle suggestions for reconnecting and healing the sacral? I think that you guys gave some, but it might be just good to reiterate just a few of those.
So let me
go ahead, baby.
Yeah, let me take
Yeah,
this
Nikki's got a lot of experience with this.
So I work with a lot of sexual trauma with others, which has been such a big part of my career. When you're dealing with sexual assault and trauma, there are so many layers to it. The first thing is more root chakra than sacral. Feeling safe is 110% the battle.
Yep. Because
when you had something happen to you that wasn't in your consent, or it did take away your innocence, there's a lot of things that happened in the subconscious, and there's a lot of like part of your psyche begins to like fracture. So it's more about going into feeling safe, how you feel safe, container work, and pulling your power back. There's so many different ways that you can do that. But what I would first like really do is say, how is this affecting me? What am I making it mean for me? And what do I need? And when you can start really asking yourself your needs when developing, because a lot of times when we go through sexual trauma or assault, especially for a woman, we're not able to orgasm. And that's not like across the board, but a lot of women I've helped heal so they can find pleasure in this area again. And it's going to start with yourself. You have to have a practice with yourself to know how to touch yourself, how you feel safe, relaxing the nervous system when you're being touched. And then when you're reintroducing this sexual energy with someone else, if you're in a relationship, it's communicating what you need, right? So having someone that will listen and go, touch me here. Oh, yeah, no, that's triggering me. Okay, I'm with you. Let's breathe it in together, and really starting to kind of heal it on like a layered thing. That's a big question with a very layered answer. Safety is key. Practicing with yourself and breathing through the discomfort and allowing your body to shake the trauma out of its system helps so much, because that's the body trying to to literally get it out of your nervous system, right? And then once you start reclaiming yourself, the more and more you're going to feel confident and comfortable in your body. Most people that have sexual trauma will pop out of their bodies into their head, or maybe even into escapism. That's why we go into alcohol and things like that. We have to continue to go, I feel safe in my body. And that is like number one foundational healing. And you honestly really shouldn't do this by yourself. If you're dealing with sexual trauma, that's deep sea diving, and you shouldn't dive alone. You need someone you trust, a professional who can hold space. A professional who knows this territory and knows how to navigate you through this territory in a safe way. And that's crucial, because doing this type of work by yourself is
that's not that you can't. It's just
we don't want you to get
hard.
lost
It's
or
so
drown.
hard.
There's so many layers to sexual trauma. There's so many layers.
You really need to have somebody helping you.
Yeah. And so you can kind of walk this path of self-empowerment through it, because once you get to parts of the other side, you start to realize like, oh, this was a life experience that helped me become empowered.
Mm-hmm.
But if you get stuck in the trauma, it's hard. It's such a sexual trauma and trauma in general are so life defining.
Mm-hmm.
And we can get stuck in a whole lifetime where we can't get out of it. But if you do get the right amount of help and the right type of support and help, it becomes the most defining thing for your empowerment, not just for your for a traumatic experience.
Yeah. You really, and I think the key is to recognize that yes, it's life defining, but it doesn't have to be a lifetime defining.
Yes,
you can heal. You can heal, and knowing that you can heal and that there's people out there who specialize in helping you heal is the first step in the battle. Because I think a lot of times people just have to go, well, I just have to accept this about my life and then just pretend it's not there or move on. That's not going to help you heal, because ultimately you have to go back into these places. And I use scuba diving as an analogy here, because you have to dive deep into these places. And the deeper you go, the scarier it can be. And not having somebody there to hold your hand or hold space for you, you could get lost. And so it's really important to have that space holder.
And it's kind of a soul retrieval type of thing sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to kind of retrieve that part of yourself, and you don't have to go back and relive it. You don't have to do that type of like trauma therapy. You can get it without having to relive the thing. But at the same time, know that whatever practice that you find, make sure it feels good for you. You don't have to be, you don't have to. I always say when somebody's going through something, they're like, I'm being re-traumatized. I go, no, don't say that to yourself. You're not being re-traumatized.
You're revisiting trauma.
You're revisiting trauma so that you can pick yourself out from that memory and get your power back. And so that's why it's super interesting, but like really listen to yourself right at that, like, who would I feel safe with? What do I feel safe doing? And then just listen to yourself and don't force, like it doesn't have to be healed tomorrow.
Right.
Like allow yourself to go through this really beautiful, gentle and gradual process.
Cycles.
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad we talked about that, because that's a huge thing for so many people. So
yeah. Sadly it is. Yeah,
unfortunately. And like we talked about beforehand, in so many different communities. Anyway, let's not go there now. Was there anything? Well, let's talk about your program and then we can close it out. So,
yeah, we actually finished something this week that we've been working on for a year. So we are doing an Ascension program, and it lasts not 7 to 9 weeks.
Yeah, it's 7 weeks of work with a prep week and an integration week.
And so it's meditations every day with Ryan and I, morning and night. So you wake up and you do a really beautiful meditation with Ryan, and then you in the evening, you fall asleep to a meditation with me that helps you take bad programs out of our subconscious, and you are able in the morning with Ryan to go, okay, what do I actually want to put here? And we give you some suggestions and things like that. And that starts January 22nd, and it's called Ascend, the Journey of Ascension, or Ascend. And this is really going to give you a relationship to all of your chakras. Something we created this last year is called Activate, and Activate is a kind of a condensed version. And you get a chakra activation every single day for 7 days. And it's just a 12-minute video with beautiful graphics.
Provided by Accent Genesis, the guy who makes these shirts.
Yep. And then one of us, depending on what chakra it is, will have a guided meditation through it or a guided activation through it. And then our singing bowls gently in the background, helping you activate each chakra in a very empowering and healthy way. It's a very beautiful visual process. So if you're not ready to make the full commitment to our big program, this is a massively affordable option. It's until Christmas time, it's just $33. So you will get 7 12-minute activations that are extremely potent and powerful to you. And we'll put a link up for you so you'll be able to purchase that. Again, it's $33 for this. Really, like, it took us a year to make.
Yeah, and I gotta be honest with you, the reason why we created these activations was a bridge to the Journey of Ascension program. So if you've never done meditation before, this is a great way to kind of
and it's affordable.
Wet your beak, if you will. You know, this is a great way to stick your toe in the water, because you don't really have to do anything except for just sit and watch and listen. And so it's a very passive experience, but you're still going to get the energetic shift that you need that will help bring you into a bigger program like the Journey of Ascension. If you're ready for that in January, it's a great way to kind of pull out all of the subconscious things in your metaphorical closet, and then, you know, decide what you want to get rid of and what you want to put back in.
So if you're interested in Activate or Ascend, we will put those links there for you. And if you want to do something like, I've been thinking about doing Ascension program, but I'm not quite sure. This is a really beautiful way to feel if you're ready or get yourself ready. Also, so if you do purchase this, just so you know, it's dropping on Christmas. So we will have it in your inbox, in your email on Christmas Day, a beautiful little package waiting for you, and then you'll get them, and then you can do them at your own leisure. You can do them as many times as you possibly want. And they're super great, and they're a little video, and again, 12 minutes, and it's pretty cool. It's very cool. Maybe we'll get hers in her inbox too. I'm excited.
We can't wait to share.
Oh my God, they're so good.
We quite literally last night we were getting the emails from Stephen Walker, Action Genesis, and he was sending us the emails, and we would watch them to send him notes and stuff, and they were so good, and we were so excited, and he was excited, which was really fun for us because he created this animation without even knowing us. We just stumbled upon the animation through YouTube and went, "We love your animation. Can we put our meditations on it?" And he said, "Yeah, that sounds great." And so he really had no expectations other than, you know, somebody was working with his art. And then after having watched, having put our meditations with his art, we've gotten such a great response from him. It's been so encouraging, and we really needed that because it's been a year-long process, and it's been really, really challenging.
These took a lot longer than we thought to come out, but we put so much energy and so much love and attention to these that I hope you give them a chance and love them as much as we do, because they're really,
they're our baby.
Yeah, it feels like a thing, like a creative process, baby.
Totally.
But yeah, so thank you.
And for the Journey of Ascension, if you do want the big package, there's a code GB23,
yes,
and you can get stuff. So keep that in mind. Use the code GB23, and think about
GB23, and you get over a $300 discount on it, and that is until Christmas. So please do. Well, we might do something special for you guys that are watching, just because we want to make sure that if you feel like you need the support to make these empowered changes, you have it. And this will support you. We know that. We've seen it. We've done it.
If you feel supported by today's gathering and last week's as well, this is just a portion of what you get in the program.
That's right. And we're going to be doing these videos again. We'll do next Friday. We're
moving
up to the solar plexus chakra. So
self-love, y'all.
Yeah, if you're like me, this is an important one. This is self-love, and so very important. It's also the last of the lower 3 chakras, which we call the creative knot. Basically, you can get really stuck in these lower 3. So once we can get through that solar plexus, things get a little lighter and easier in the heart and the throat and all the third eye and all that fun stuff.
Throat, sometimes people are like,
They all have their challenges, but the first 3 tend to be dense.
Yeah, it's true.
Very dense.
Well, let's close it down. Let's bubble it in.
Yeah. All right, guys. So let's go ahead and bring that energy back to our conscious awareness. Start by sitting up nice and tall. Again, we want to use your spine like it's an antenna. So the more upright you are, the better reception you will get. And from this position, close your eyes. And start to connect to your breath. Feel that big, beautiful ball of energy that's circulating your body during this entire video. This beautiful orange ball of light. And we're going to use our breath to deflate this ball, basically bringing all that energy back down into the sacral, condensing our experience into that energy center. Inhale. Then exhale, letting the energy out. Shrinking the size of that ball to the size of a beach ball. Inhale. Let the energy out. Shrinking that ball to the size of a basketball. Inhale. And release the energy. Shrinking that ball to the size of a softball. To the size of a golf ball. To the size of a marble. Feeling all that beautiful sacral energy sitting right there, floating in the center of your pelvis. And just take all of the wonderful information, wisdom, knowledge, just let it float into your cells like osmosis. Thank you guys so much for listening to us speak. When you're ready, you can open your eyes, come back to this space and time. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you so much. We'll see you next week. Namaste.
Bye.
Namaste in
Namaste.
touch.